everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Crying is Manly, podcast where we discuss mental health with a focus on embracing vulnerability and living authentically. I wanted to try something different this episode. If you hate ASMR, then you might want to skip this one, but for my fellow ASMR enjoyers out there, I hope you find this interesting and let me know what you think. I'm always open to feedback. So, I wanted to talk a little bit about ASMR specifically as it relates to mental health. I've been struggling with a lot of stuff in my life recently, and one of the things that I discovered kind of helps me feel a lot better is listening to ASMR. Not so much the sounds. I'm not really into the clicking and, tapping objects and brushing and all that. For me, what I identify with more is the affirmations. So, someone just saying soothing things or that sort of nature. So, it's basically the sort of personal attention kind of stuff. It's hard to explain, but mostly just speaking. I've listened to a few that said they were like reparenting. So, imagine a parental figure telling you it's going to be okay or comforting you after a nightmare, that kind of thing. I've found that to be helpful for me emotionally. It to kind of get me in that space of feeling safe and loved and reassured and all that. Not that I feel unsafe or unloved in real life or in my normal life, but we've all got interesting layers of trauma and all that junk from life. So whether my life is quote unquote good at the moment or compared to other people, regardless, this kind of helps me drop into that space, that safe and loved space where I can sort of work through things or honestly even just relax. I imagine I kind of use it probably like some people use guided meditations. Imagine if you listen to a guided meditation where it says you're a leaf floating on a river, or they want you to take steps down to a beach and now you're laying in the beautiful sun listening to the waves. It's that kind of thing. It does those sort of vibes, and that sort of headspace I think is pretty similar to the one I get from the type of ASMR I listen to. So, that's why I'm whispering for this one. So yeah, I just wanted to bring that up. If any of you have not tried listening to ASMR yet, I recommend giving it a shot. Again, it doesn't have to have sound effects. The ones I listen to are almost devoid of sound effects. There's very little. Every once in a while, one of them might have a little bit of brief, tapping or brushing or whatever, but I like the ones that are almost exclusively voice, just like I'm doing now. I'm not doing sound effects, I'm just speaking. That's something that's interesting as well. This one's kind of hit or miss for me, but listening to ASMR in a different language, I have a few. I've been building a playlist, and I have a few that are in Japanese. I love the Japanese language. So I have a few in Japanese, and I've got a few in German. Surprisingly, German. I was really surprised how beautiful German is whispered. I mean, there's nothing wrong with it, spoken, of course, but I don't know, I was, you'll get comments from Americans sometimes that the German language sounds, angry or shouty or something like that. I think because of those percussiveness and sort of some of the guttural sounds, but it's surprisingly beautiful whispered. So I've got a few on there that are in German. I think I might have a couple in Spanish. Mostly English though, again, because of the content. If I'm wanting to specifically hear them saying you're safe and loved or whatever, obviously if I don't know the language, I can't understand that. So the few there's a few in languages I don't understand that I've just sort of peppered through because they still have kind of a good energy that I can get out of it, even if I don't understand them. And then one thing I wanted to touch on specifically here regarding ASMR is, so the title of the episode, so there's kind of a wide range of expressions of, gender. So even if you identify as a man or male or, transmasc, there's a lot of ways that we can perform our gender, be our gender, feel our gender. And one of the ways, as you may probably already be aware, but one of the ways, or one of the things rather, that society does is to pretty much categorically indoctrinate men or male people to cut off a lot of aspects of themselves. So, I mean, there's even stand-up comedians that talk about this. They have bits where they talk about how, you can't do or be or enjoy anything that's, cute or sweet or sensitive, because, that means you're gay or that means you're not manly or whatever. And so I think there are men for whom, if they haven't listened to ASMR in the kinds I'm talking about in this episode, if they haven't listened to that kind yet, and they're not a man who's generally okay with being in touch with parts of themselves that are, cutesy, sweet, sensitive, etc., this can actually be kind of a vector for exploring that. Again, specifically if you are listening to one that's, letting you know you're in a safe place and you're appreciated and loved and all that, because they're giving you literal, direct, but also sort of implicit permission to be those things. So, the more I've listened to some of these ASMR audios, it was actually really surprising. I actually found myself identifying with different pronouns, which I never expected. It's wild. At first because I ostensibly, I'm a man. I mean, everything about me, I was born male. I have male parts. I have, the facial hair, etc., etc. I'm not a person who was, as far as I know, was born, intersex or anything like that. So of course, if I listened to one that used gendered words, of course I would listen to the male ones. So where they said good boy or, boy, man. I can't think of the other word right now. But, he, him, boy, man, etc. But the more I've listened to these, and I've gotten sort of comfortable sort of exploring more sort of aspects of myself in that safe space, if that makes sense, I've actually started identifying, or I've started being sort of less comforted by the male ones, and I've started leaning more towards the non-gendered ones. So that would be where they would just, if you use a cutesy word for someone, but it's not like a male or female one, so those kind of, how's my pumpkin doing, or whatever, that kind of thing. And then I had like 2 or 3 recently where they were using the female pronouns, so they were saying girl or something like that. And I actually found those specifically to be, I guess, comforting is the right word. So that was really fascinating. I would have never expected that. So it's going to be interesting to see sort of which pronouns I sort of resonate with as I continue listening to these, and then try to figure out why. My suspicion is that if this is allowing me to sort of tap into those more quote-unquote feminine aspects of myself and sort of settle into this headspace that's got like a softness to it, I guess it makes sense that I might sort of feel warm and cozy if they use female pronouns during those, because I'm accessing that quote-unquote female aspects of myself that we're usually discouraged from embodying, if that makes sense. So again, just to sort of summarize, if you've never listened to ASMR, or if you have, and you were turned off by all the sound effects and mouth sounds and clicking and all that, I definitely recommend checking out the ones like this that are just whispering. And particularly if you've ever been interested in guided meditation, or if you're a person who's very high-strung, very stressed, I definitely recommend checking out the ones that are, a parent comforting you, or things of that nature, where they're specifically focused on speaking those, affirmations and comforting and making you feel safe and loved. You might be surprised at sort of where that takes you and if it helps you. So, alright, that's it for this episode. I love you. I appreciate you. You are valid. And until next time, just remember, crying is manly.